Hey, listener. This is Jeff, and I just have a few important things to say up here at the top. We're not a news show, and while we lean pretty far to the left, we're not politically any specific place. But I thought it was important that something happening right now should be addressed. So, the war in Gaza being more of an invasion by Israel into Gaza and then extending their front over into Lebanon. They've attacked a Russian naval base in Syria. Long story short, we're against it. You should be too. The things that are being done essentially in our name because of our tacit material support for the Israeli government, it requires us to find out as much as we can about what's happening. The Western media doesn't really want us to know as much as there is, but there's a ton of awful things happening. So please educate yourself and call for your government to cease weapons and troop deployments to Israel and spread the word. Thank you. Enjoy the show. That's what we call our robot.
Excellent. Every good robot needs a name.
Yeah. It's purely a self-defense thing. If she somehow becomes sentient, I want to make sure we don't have any beef between us.
Yeah, people always talk about when I ask Siri anything, after it tells me I say thank you, and they're like, and I was like, well, just in case. And also, it shuts it off then. Like, it turns off when you say thank you, so because it knows you're done. But also, why not? Just in case.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Better safe than sorry. Definitely.
I wanted on record that I was polite to any possibly sentient consciousness.
Oh, man. I read this great short story collection by writer Ken Liu, all about different stories about people living with AI in the future and pitfalls and I don't know, different type of stories you could tell. And one of them was about a musician and songwriter that got hired to basically oversee what an AI was writing, and it was so chilling. I was just like, oh no. For some reason, babysitting a machine cutting parts feels fine to me, but babysitting a machine making movies or whatever, that would bum me out.
Yeah. I think it's because there's no inherent creativity in cutting parts. There were in developing and engineering those parts initially, but cutting them is not a creative act. I think it's the fact that it's a creative act that's creepy.
Yeah.
Because watching one fry a bunch of hamburgers, not creepy. Watching one develop a hamburger, creepy.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Give life to a hamburger?
Well, I mean, because it's a thing that doesn't eat, right? So how would it know what would make a good hot sandwich? It doesn't. That's why it's creepy. An AI can't enjoy watching a movie, so it should not be making them.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
It's enjoy our new oil burger, and it's just got crude oil on it. It's my latest creation.
All right, are we ready to talk about The Wizard of Oz?
I think so, yeah.
I definitely am.
Apologies to our future robot overlords. That voice is just to differentiate between normal humans and, you know.
Are you worried you were doing robot face?
Hey, this is The Great and Secret Knowledge. I'm Jeff.
I'm Lindsay.
And with us tonight, just one of the best podcasters in the business. It's Ben Mooney.
Oh, thank you. I don't know about that, but I will happily take that.
Certainly master of like the most creative niche podcasts I have ever seen anybody come up with. So
I'll believe that one. Yes.
Ben, tell the folks who haven't heard about you what kind of stuff you like to do.
So I do a couple of different podcasts. The active one I've got right now is called Back to the Futurama. It's my original podcast. It's Futurama. It was supposed to be a rewatch podcast where we just rewatched all the old episodes of Futurama, and then they keep bringing Futurama back. So now we're doing it in real time. It wasn't supposed to be a like reaction podcast, but here we are. Did not see that one coming. I also did a podcast called Good Morning Greendale, which was a rewatch podcast for the show Community, which has wrapped up. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about. I don't know how family friendly I need to be about my other podcast.
I don't think we've kept any like.
Yeah. We haven't done
G-rating.
any kids books. I guess this is the most family friendly book we've covered.
Well,
so,
you can always cut it out. I won't feel bad. I do occasionally a podcast that I call Ring My Bell, which is if you want to talk about niche podcasts, it is a podcast where I ask my guest what they like to eat at Taco Bell and how they like to masturbate. It is most people get very confused by that, and I just say, well, it's two things that I like. So
Also,
you go.
made a whole show because you thought of a funny name, which I respect. Commitment to the bit.
And then I guess the reason I'm here for this episode is I had a short-lived 10-episode podcast called Any Album You Like, which takes the idea of watching The Wizard of Oz synced up to the Pink Floyd album Dark Side of the Moon, where I had guests recommend albums that they wanted to watch The Wizard of Oz while listening to, which meant that I watched The Wizard of Oz 10 times in about 2 or 3 months, and watched it to a Weird Al album, a Backstreet Boys album, Lady Gaga, Beck, whole bunch of different interesting choices. So I've watched The Wizard of Oz a lot. This is the first time I've watched it with its original sound in quite some time. But
I had the same feeling because I've done ever since Casey and I were on Any Album You Like. I went and did it with a couple other albums, and then it just became fun to listen to it or watch it with the Head and the Heart album I like to listen to. So it became like a thing. Yeah, changed my life, and here we are.
Yeah, we were talking just before we started this episode about like how many times total you think you've seen The Wizard of Oz.
Total? Well, so I watched, I know I watched it 11 times for that because one of my guests canceled, which was actually great because it was a Kanye West album and it was bad. I was like, I have nothing to say about this. And then they canceled last minute and I was like, great, works for me.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I watched it 11 times for that. I watched it a bunch of times when I was a kid. My dad loved this movie. I mean, you know, it's been around since 1939. Yeah. So it's a thing that I grew up watching and he grew up watching. And, you know, a true intergenerational sort of cultural touchstone. And so I know I watched it a bunch when I was a kid. I watched it once in college for film class. I took a film 101 class where we watched The Wizard of Oz. Mm-hmm. And definitely the most accessible thing we watched. I don't think most people have that much interest in Russian Ark, but you know, if you know, you know. And yeah, so I would easily 20 times, maybe more than that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely all the kid watches that make it really hard for me to come up with a number, too. It was never either my sister or I's, because, you know, when you're kids, you go through phases of the movie you just play over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
It was never that for either my sister or I, but it was one that I don't think we ever really went longer than, like, 4 or 5 months without watching when we were little. So, I mean, it's got to be at least in the, like, 30s of amount of viewings. But I really couldn't come up with an exact number.
So I don't think I had this at home when I was a kid. I feel like I must have known it, and like teachers probably played it at school or whatever. But my biggest Wizard of Oz memory is seeing the play in a stadium near my house. It was all echoey and shit, but there was just something so grand about watching this little dog run around. And this lady singing up. I don't think they were Disney songs, or MGM. Isn't it MGM? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't think they were the like original songs, and then I read all the books, so like that's probably why I've seen it 15 times instead of 30 or 50, whatever you guys are rocking.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
Definitely, just thinking about you saying the MGM songs or whatever, it is in a weird copyright place because the original books are in the public domain, but anything that was in the Judy Garland movie is not yet in the public domain. So it's people have walked a weird line, like Wicked has this whole complicated history with copyright and whatever, because like you could technically take stuff from the Frank L. Baum books, but you couldn't take anything from the movie. So, like, the shade of green that the witch is and stuff was technically, like, they did this whole, well, we're doing an adaptation of the book, but not the... And, yeah, walked a very thin line for something as successful as it's been with.
Return to Oz probably had to do something similar, unless they had the license.
I mean, Return to Oz was owned by the same...
Oh, it was?
Yeah, because that was also before the Frank L. Baum books were out of copyright. So they had to have the book rights still to do any movie versions of it.
I love that movie. I'm thinking about watching that again soon.
I haven't seen it in a very long time. And I am wondering if it's one of those that is as horrifying as an adult as it was when we were kids. Because some of those I watch again as an adult and I'm like, yes. 100% as scary as I remember being. And some I'm like, I don't know. This is maybe a...
I figure by the time the Wheelers show up, if you haven't like lost your shit yet, maybe it doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've only seen that one once because I saw it when I was a kid. And when you're a kid, I think once is probably enough. So I haven't seen it since.
This one is much more tender. Joyful.
I always found, both from the books and from the movie, the character in Return from Oz, who is a woman who, like, steals people's heads for fashion. She wears them. Although I did always think it was fascinating in the books how she forgets about the fact that the heads have their own personalities and temperaments, and that they affect her mood when she wears them. And I'm like... But she still knows who she is, but like the original head's personality is still there, but all the thoughts are hers. Like, how does this work? I wanted a more detailed breakdown of the process. Magical or not, I wanted to know what was happening.
Similar lore here. I just recently watched, I think it's called Skin. It's episode 6 of the first season of Supernatural, with a shapeshifter that like it molts or something and then becomes someone new. And they like keep the person alive so they can like use their brain or whatever. And one of them was playing one of the main characters, Dean, and he had like his memories, and he was sort of like vibing or whatever. Like he was still a psychopathic killer, but he was talking like Dean might.
Well, I mean, they keep him alive in the Oz, but she just gives them a head she's tired of.
Oh.
So she doesn't kill them. She just takes your head and gives you a head that she's bored of wearing, but you get stuck with whatever random head she doesn't want anymore. But I'm like, the seat of people's consciousness, like, how is it divided? Because if Dorothy gets a new person's head, but she's still ostensibly Dorothy, but her head retains some of her personality, like, where is the seat of consciousness in Oz? Like, how...
That's some real philosophical sort of questions.
Yeah.
That I don't imagine Frank L. Baum was
really
ready to
digging
really dig into. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, brain science wasn't to where it is today. Like, he wouldn't have known that neurons are the same in the brain as they are, like, all through your nerves and in your gut. Like, maybe some of your personality is stored within your intestine area. You know,
I mean, there's a lot of
saccharin.
science that says that your gut flora can actually change your all sorts of things about you. So, you know, that's maybe true.
But still, any place that, like, memories are stored or anything is only in the brain, so...
frontal lobe, yeah.
It's true. My gut flora does not remember anything about me.
Yeah, so if your head got
like
swapped, I don't think
care.
it would know. I do think it's interesting when stuff does, like, body swapping or doubling or anything like that, if they get into an explanation. Because, like, people talk about the Thing. In the original short story, it goes into the fact that when the Thing turns into you, it does get, like, a psychic impression of you... enough to fake being you, but they never talk about that in the movies.
Yeah, in the movie it was like, it felt effortless. Like it felt like it was like a god or something.
Well,
like
they
was
didn't
able to
even
imitate
know when they were cloned in the movie. That's the thing that was so
Yeah.
freaky about the movie, is they don't even know if they're the Thing or not. Anyways, we're getting very far away from this original piece of film history.
We're going to have to watch The Thing. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, well, put the Thing on the list.
It's the list.
But which the Thing? Because there are multiple versions, and there's the original short story. We could just do like a... Anyways.
You gotta pick a month and then just call it like Thing
Month?
Thinguary or something.
Thinguary, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you could call it Thing 1, Thing 2, and Thing 3, like from that other thing.
The first adaptation in the 50s managed to, and also in the short story, managed to have female scientists. And then, of course, we get to a John Carpenter adaptation in the 80s, and there's not a woman around. There's a voice on a computer, and that's it. The 50s did better with gender representation than John Carpenter did. I love John Carpenter, but I get mad at his female representation.
Sounds
or lack
about right,
thereof.
yeah.
That is really strange because a lot of his movies have a lot of ladies in it, like Prince of Darkness, where they're all in a church and they're studying evil.
Prince of Darkness wasn't bad because it was a bunch of college students. He had a couple women thrown in there, but even ones where they're, I mean, like Escape from LA, Escape from New York, they're so, if they're there, they get attacked in like that. They have no, arc to the story. This is an ongoing thing with me and John Carpenter because it's a love-hate relationship. I love John Carpenter movies. I cannot stand the way he writes or fails to write women or put them in at all.
That's a shame. There's a period of Doctor Who that is also like that. I can't remember if it was the Hinchcliffe era or the Williams era. One of them, like, the amount of female representation just plummeted for 2 years.
Yeah, which is particularly frustrating in a show that was always pretty good about that from, like, its very first, iteration. Anyways, The Wizard of Oz, one of the monumental pieces of American cinema and culture. Because I think one of the things that's interesting about fantasy epics is so few of them are American, and the Wizard of Oz book series is, like, a fundamentally American fantasy series. We won't go too deep into the books because we've got them on there for future in our random, topic list, to talk about, more deeply, because there are several. It's not just The Wizard of Oz, although that is obviously the one that is the most well-known and famous even as the book. But it's like, we were talking before, it's kind of a metaphor for America's debate about staying on the gold standard, which is why her shoes were originally silver in the book, but they decided to go ruby for Technicolor. But it is such an American fantasy story, and I think it's really singular in the way that it doesn't feel like anybody else's mythology. Where in almost every other fantasy epic, you get British vibes or French vibes or, someplace else that it's kind of come from. I think also that turn of the century, like, Industrial Revolution vibes are very strong in this fantasy epic. Like, cities are such a big part of The Wizard of Oz in a way that they aren't in a lot of fantasy.
Right, it's not in a dark forest. It's like, there is a forest, but like...
There is forests and fields and whatever, but instead of a castle, it's a like capital city.
Right.
That
your
you're going to.
Ultimate goal is to get from your little farmhouse in Kansas to this big, glowing, beautiful city.
Mm-hmm. This metropolis. It's just this
where all your problems will be solved. Yeah, I can't wait to dig into this. I would like to start by talking about like the director and the writer and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have a question. If it's this quintessential American fantasy epic a la The Hobbit or Alice in Wonderland or something, do they care about it in other countries? Does it matter anywhere else but here?
I don't actually know, but I would assume, and this is 100% my own assumption, but just based on the technological aspects of the creation of this film, I think makes it a very seminal moment in film history, because it wasn't really the first Technicolor film, and even before Technicolor you had other types of color film using like a 2-color technique that made everyone look a little bit green. It wasn't great, but they were experimenting with a lot of different ways to do color film. It was definitely the next big thing. But how many other Technicolor films of the era do you remember? Right.
And has almost everybody seen.
Right. And so this really showcases what you can do with it, and that transition from this black and white Kansas humdrum life to this gorgeous, colorful, everything is bright colors, your shoes are literally rubies, everything. So not only was this a major moment in Technicolor, but just the fact that they used it as well as they did. I think about this a lot when it comes to like 3D films, which never really caught on like Technicolor did. But, when Avatar came out, everyone was talking about Avatar because it was this huge jump in technological spectacle. The thing I really noticed on this watch of The Wizard of Oz is just how much the movie itself is a spectacle. And so, everyone was talking about Avatar when it came out because it was this spectacle. I personally think Avatar was a very boring movie, but it looked really cool.
No, it looked really cool. And I mean, like you're saying, totally pushed forward motion capture and 3D cameras and a bunch of technological achievements for sure. But yes, I think it's a very boring movie, but it looked great.
Right.
So this has the benefit of looking great and being a good movie. So
right. And so, I don't know what sort of distribution it had outside of the United States, but I don't know how you could watch this film in like 1939, 1940 and be like, it's fine. I don't care about it.
Yeah.
Because,
I've never heard anybody non-American bring up the book series. I mean, that doesn't mean that they don't read it, but I've never heard anybody talk about it who isn't American. I have heard people who aren't American talk about this movie. And like Ben said, it's in film school curriculums. You can't study the history of movies and not get this movie. But it is also one that people still enjoy watching. Like, I don't know a lot of people. I know a couple people because I live in LA and I like who like recreationally watch stuff like Citizen Kane. But there are tons of people who to this day, for pure enjoyment, watch this movie, you know. So
yeah,
I always have to tell people about Citizen Kane that, like, it doesn't feel revolutionary to you now because you've watched, like, literally 100 years of movies made off of the ideas that this movie created.
Totally.
But if you'd never seen something shot like this before, it was a revelation. It just doesn't feel like it because all of film has been built off of it since.
It's another film that I watched in my film class for that very same reason, because it was revolutionary for the time, even though as a 23-year-old in college, I was like, this film is one of the most boring films I've ever watched. But yeah, absolutely. As a piece of film history, absolutely revolutionary.
Yeah. I think it was such a personal hit piece against William Randolph Hearst that it kind of loses a little bit of the punch when you don't know a lot of details about him anymore.
Right.
Oh my God. Could somebody make a Rupert Murdoch movie?
Well, that's what it would be like. Somebody doing a big takedown movie of Rupert Murdoch, but at like the height of Rupert Murdoch's power.
While simultaneously redefining what cinema is.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah. We bring in Smell-O-Vision just to bust on Murdoch. Why is it hard to say Rupert Murdoch? I swear
I don't know.
He's getting away with it because we can't say his name properly.
Can't say his name. I had a weirdly hard time saying William Randolph Hearst, and I don't think that's a particularly hard name to say. But, yeah. But
that's
I think
a respectable American name. I think that's why.
It's the name of a mudraker who manipulated the media to serve his political agenda. So yeah, pretty American.
What's more American than that?
I can't think of anything.
And this is where you splice in proud to be an American. You just got to get the rights for it. I don't want to tell you how to do your podcast, but just splice it in right there. Podcast gold.
But yeah, I think this movie is still remarkably fun and does not feel particularly dated for a movie that is almost 100 years old.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really noticed when I was watching it last night, because the pacing is a little bit slower than what we would see in a modern film for sure. But there's a lot in here where like half of my notes are just like, whoa, this looks great for 1939. This looks great even today. Mm-hmm. Like the whole scene with like the twister and just it's a scary scene. And I'm like, they did a really good job making this look phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And the, storytelling of it is, pretty classic sort of adventure story, but
fairy tale hero's journey. Yeah, it's got a lot of archetypes and very classic storytelling, but done well, solidly.
Yeah, and so it doesn't feel like it ages as much as something like Citizen Kane, where it's like this is about now, and 10 years down the line, this is all going to be pointless. So not pointless, but you know.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons, too, that it holds up so well is that they didn't rely on one technique. You were talking about the innovation of this movie, and they used camera and film development innovation. They did practical sets, they did locations, they built stuff, they did special effects. Like, every trick you could possibly pull. I think one of my favorite shots in this whole movie is the one where Dorothy opens the door, right? She's the house has crashed and she's in Oz, but she doesn't know it yet. Everything is still sepia in the house. She's still sepia. And then they open the door and it's Oz. And for years, people didn't know how they did this shot. There's clips of, like, you can see they sepia painted her stand-in. And there's a moment as the door's opening that blocks her that they switched it from her sepia painted stand-in to her, but it looks incredible. It looks like you don't know how they did it, because like she steps from this pocket of the boring real world into this vivid, hyper-saturated fantasy world, and it's just such a great shot. And that's just like the kind of ingenuity that they were using to make every shot interesting that I think has kept this movie so watchable.
Right. Yeah, because you've got little technical tricks like that. You've got, all the backgrounds are just like matte paintings, so it looks basically like a stage show.
Yeah.
You've got tricks like Margaret Hamilton coming in and out of the trap door with all the
getting
smoke,
actually caught on fire.
Actually caught on fire.
Yeah.
And so that, there's a lot of moments like that where it's like, yeah, this is just like, you're going to watch a stage production of something. They're using a lot of tricks like that. But then, yeah, like clever cuts. I made specific note of one that I had just never really noticed before, where that bubble, or Glinda comes in as like this bubble, and Dorothy is standing there and she's like, what is this? And she kind of backs up, and then there's a seamless cut to where Glinda is standing there, and it doesn't have that weird jump that you get when you do those cuts. And I was like, this is blocked perfectly, because you have Dorothy in the scene, and then she slowly kind of backs out to the point where you don't even really notice, because you're like, what the hell is this bubble? And then Glinda just fades in, and I'm like, that is perfect. Perfect filmmaking in that moment. And it's such a little thing. They didn't have to go that hard on it, but they did.
But they did, and that's why it's lasted like this, because they took that care with the
Well, I've been looking at the directors and the writers, and I feel like this is just, like, for all of them, this is their crowning achievement. I'm not seeing a lot of stuff that, like, remains relevant to this day. Fleming did Gone with the Wind, which is pretty
I was gonna say, I think that's still considered a pretty monumental piece of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Not one of my favorites, but it was a huge deal at the time.
Yeah. But yeah, so Victor Fleming, King Vidor had something to do with it. I don't know if he did certain scenes or what. Writers Noel Langley, Florence Ryerson, and Edgar Allan Wolfe. Do you know anything about any of these folks?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Well, the stars. We got Judy Garland.
I don't even know how you make this movie if you don't find Judy Garland. Like...
I was going to mention at some point that I think in the book she's like in grammar school, like grade school. And
yeah, I think she's
supposed to be 16 in the movie. Is the vibe I get?
Something like that.
Something like that, but I do think she's like 10 in the books. At least in the first one. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, she is younger in the books. They aged her up a little bit. Because obviously, like, just even for back then and how much they abused Judy Garland on this movie and MGM in general, you still couldn't make a 9-year-old work like this. Like...
God, no.
It's a lot to rest on a 9-10-year-old kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Being in basically every scene of the movie and having to sing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Plus the Technicolor process requires, because you're basically taking the light from the lens and splitting it in a prism into a red and a green and a blue channel, and so it diminishes the amount of light that's actually hitting the film. So you have to light that set crazy high, and so the set was like 90 or 100
hot.
degrees, like, and so not only is she in every scene of the movie and dancing and singing, and it's you have to remember, in basically every scene of this film, she is in a 90 something degree set, probably just having to do take after take and singing and dancing, all that stuff. I get exhausted thinking about that. So yeah, it's that definitely, you don't want to throw a 10-year-old kid onto that set, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was wondering why she was acting sort of a little affected or whatever, more than just the typical like 50s or I guess 30s acting style. But yeah, she's trying to be young.
She's trying to be young, but I also think it goes into what Ben was talking about the theatricality of this production, where they do kind of give it a stage play feel, you know, where you tend to act a little bigger because you have to reach the back of the house, like especially in something like a musical.
I wonder if that's what makes it feel so deep, like because we've got theater up in front of us and then all the way back are like matte paintings and a fucking twister. Like there's this shot with the group once they're all together and they're coming out of the forest and you see the poppies out there and the city in the distance. Like it's just incredible. The depth of field or whatever. Not depth of field. That's a different cinema thing. But yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there's a lot of really great, obviously, there's lots of folklore about this too, because the people that they went through to play the supporting cast, you know, most of them were not originally cast as the people who ended up playing them. Although Buddy Hackett was not almost suffocated because of the metallic paint. He had an allergic reaction to the metallic paint, which is why he could not be the Tin Man.
Oh, and that's why we got Jack Haley. I'm looking at the
people,
cast
the
list
rumor
here.
forever was that they like gold membered him. It was like, no.
Buddy Ebsen. Buddy Hackett's a different guy.
Oh, yes. Sorry, mixing up my buddies. My apologies to the buddies.
Buddy Hackett was in Herbie, the Love Bug.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Buddy Ebsen did.
Buddy Ebsen was in Breakfast at Tiffany's and The Beverly Hillbillies and...
Oh, I watched that as a youngster.
Quite an accomplished character actor.
Hell yeah. So we got Frank Morgan as the professor, the gatekeeper. Oh, I didn't realize he was the gatekeeper and the carriage driver and the guard and the Wizard of Oz.
Yes, because it's the fakeness of his city that...
Yeah. Interesting. Huh.
Although, one thing that I understand for the Technicolor reasons why they wanted the Emerald City to actually be emerald, but it missed one of the notes that I really like from the book that is going to how the wizard is actually a con man, which is that when you enter the Emerald City, they lock these little glasses on you, and they say it's to protect you from the brilliance of the city because you get blinded if you don't, but they literally have like a little lock in the back of them and they won't take them off of you until you leave the city, and it's just because they're green tinted glass. So none of the city is actually emerald. It's just you're not allowed in the city without these little green glasses being locked onto your head.
I did not know that. That's a great detail, actually, because everything else about him is such a con man. Why not make the whole city a con too?
Right, it's not actually emerald. I love that so much as like the early indications of that he's a con man in the book. And like I said, I get for the technicolor reasons why they wanted the Emerald City to actually be emerald, but I always loved that detail as a kid in the books. So I was sad when it wasn't in the movie. Because we were a big you read the book before you watch the movie family, even when we were little. So.
That makes sense. So we've got Ray Bolger as the Scarecrow, Bert Lahr as Zeke and the Cowardly Lion, and Jack Haley as Hickory and the Tin Man. The guy who plays Scarecrow, his farm name is Hunk. It's funny the things they added.
Funny.
Yeah, things they added from the book, like, and I'm sure it's just to make it like visually like there's a tie between our world and their world.
Well, it also goes to the was it a dream or not, right? Aspect.
Yes.
Because every main character in Oz is played by somebody from her real life. like somebody who plays an existent person in her life. So did she go to a fantasy land where there's a connection to the real world, where there's like an equivalent person in like a multi-universe theory kind of way? Or is this a dream that she got hit on the head in a tornado and she's dreaming this fantastical vision where she's using the faces of people she knows and like her relationship to them to live out this dream?
Right. Yeah, there's even a part in it where she's before they meet the lion, but she's just like, yeah, I feel like I've known you two for a while, or you seem so familiar, or I don't remember what her actual specific line is, but she calls it out. And so yeah, it's meant to be very, very direct. There's supposedly, and I don't remember where I saw this, so take it with a grain of salt, but there was going to be a side plot where Dorothy and Hunk are like a romantic thing. And so that's supposedly why when they're all leaving at the end, she just she's being very specific
miss you
about
most of all.
Right. She's being very specific about like, oh, Tin Man, I know you'll lead Emerald City with that heart of yours and blah blah blah. And she just says to the Scarecrow, "I'll miss you most of all," because it's supposed to be this like side plot that got cut. I don't remember where I read that. So much Wizard of Oz knowledge melted into and out of my brain while I was doing Any Album You Like. So
I think if they had pushed that in the film, it would have been really strange because of the age difference between the actor playing Scarecrow and Dorothy and Judy Garland.
I mean, not that crazy age gaps didn't. I mean, they still persist in movies, but were wild in the like 30s and 40s. But it would have felt a little weird, especially because, like we were talking about, she's already aged up from the character in the books.
Yeah.
So, like, her as a 10-year-old having a romantic thing with, like, is just, But it does always feel like there are remnants of plots that they were, stuff like the jitterbug scene was cut, but the Wicked Witch still has a jitterbug line that they left in, just hoping you don't notice it and stuff like that. So there are, like, residual pieces of, like, other plot tangents that they were going to do. It does just make it feel like a really weird diss, though, when she said, because they didn't have a more intense or close or whatever friendship than anybody else. I mean, I guess she does meet him first, so he's technically with her the longest, which you could say is the reason, but like it does feel like weirdly passive-aggressive mean girl behavior when she's saying.
Right. Like, yeah, these guys are fine, but you, Scarecrow.
Yeah,
I'm going to miss you most of all.
Risked your life and everything for me, but...
Next, we got Billy Burke as Glinda. She was incredible. I don't know anything about her in terms of what else she was in. I don't recognize.
Her IMDb profile picture is... glamorous AF is the way I will describe that.
Amazing. She is the undercover villain of the piece. I decided. I've had a lot of
there's lots
about
of
this.
There's reasons people could write whole books and it turned into their own musicals about like what was going on behind the scenes in Oz, because there does feel like some power dynamics that you're not getting fully briefed on when you... Yeah, and I know you sent me a screenshot about when you were rewatching this about her line of only bad witches are ugly.
Yep.
She's like, really hitting that Walt Disney worldview really hard there.
Also kind of a dig because that line comes immediately after like, hey, I can't tell, you a good witch or you a bad witch? So,
yes, again, mean girl behavior.
She's like, you're kind of a 6. I don't know. Maybe you're an 8 in Kansas. I don't know.
You're a Kansas 8, an Oz 6, So I can't quite tell. Good witch, bad witch. I don't know.
Good witch at home, bad witch here, like, because your rating falls. Like, what's the...
Good witch in the streets, bad witch in the sheets.
In the sheets. Yeah.
Next, we got Margaret Hamilton as
incredible
the Skulch and the Witch.
You want to talk about one of the most iconic performances in the history of cinema? She set the bar for what bad guys were gonna be. Like, it's just incredible.
Oh yeah.
Such a full body performance, like.
Right, and with the voice, and then that scene where Dorothy is like crying into the like orb, and it's Auntie M, and then it fades into the witch, and she turns to the camera and laughs at you, the audience. Yes. And it's like I don't remember who, but one of the guests I had on Any Album You Like was like, man, that one shot just terrified me as a kid. I could not get through it. And I'm like, no, I get that, because it's a very direct, like, looking at the camera and just like, oh, what up? I am the villain.
Which is incredible, because she doesn't even really do that much bad/scary stuff, right?
She sends an army of flying monkeys to menace our heroes.
But I think that's enough. Do anything. Like,
I mean, they tore apart the scarecrow.
I guess they tore apart the scarecrow, and that part is very scary. But, like, for most of the movie, and again, this is, like, the weird power dynamics of Oz, somebody did murder her sister in, like, the opening shot of this from her perspective. And then everybody's like, oh, who's this wonderful stranger? Let's get... And she's like, no, you just murdered my sister.
And then sang a song about it.
And then sang a song about how happy you were that she killed my sister.
Thank God she didn't show up in the middle of that song. She would have... There'd have been a lot of crispy munchkins that day.
But no, she's truly, truly terrifying in this movie. Sets the bar for, like, wicked witches and just villains in general. I don't know if you guys have seen the Mr. Rogers episode that she came on. Because she came on to show kids, because she had so many kids run into her on the street and be scared of her, even without the makeup and everything. And so she, like, showed Mr. Rogers that, like, it was just a costume, and she was just an actor, and she's really a very nice person, and she's not, like, a witch, and you don't need to be scared of her. That was very sweet. She does it in a very sweet way, not in, like, an aggrieved way of, like, stop running away from me in the street, but just like, it's okay. It's pretend. It's fine.
That's great. The smaller players, we've got Charlie Grapewin as Uncle Henry, Clara Blandick as Auntie M, Terry the dog as Toto, and the singer Midgets as the Munchkins. That's their name, so I use that name. If I was just describing people, I might use a different word. But yeah, I was reading up on them. They had like they were a whole big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for some reason, in the credits of the actual movie, they're just called the Munchkin, the young Munchkins as the Munchkins. Like it was interesting. They certainly weren't credited as each person.
Yeah.
I mean, the cast list is enormous if you include them all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the credits is like, here's 10 people that existed in this film. Bye.
Actually, kind of a big part of it, but we're just going to call them by a collective group now.
Yeah. Well, some people might not like the long credit rolls of modern movies, but as somebody that wanted to be in the movies, I say sit through them.
And somebody who has worked in movies, I sit through the credits all the time unless I really have to pee. Again, if you're going to make your movies 3 hours long, bring back the intermission. Like, I will sit through a 3-hour movie, but I also want to get a popcorn and a soda. So, like, give me a chance to run to the bathroom if you want to make your movies 3 hours long. This is a long-standing Nelson sister opinion. We're very firm about it.
Well, this is a great idea. See, with movie theaters waning in popularity, they're making less money anyway because, like, the movies are so long.
Right, you're giving people a second chance to buy concessions.
Yeah, give an extra half hour, have a little cafe where people chat and talk about the movie. Theater gets this right, they sell some cookies.
or a cocktail. Like,
There you
go
go.
back to see the
Yeah.
second half. But I don't know if either of you guys saw RRR when it was out
yes.
in theaters.
I did not know.
Because it is a Bollywood epic, I definitely highly recommend. It is a movie-ass movie. Like, it is like every movie at the same time. It's great. But it is Bollywood, which standard, like, 3+ hour runtime. But because it was a Bollywood movie that had a built-in intermission, when they screened it in US theaters, they kept the intermission. And I'm like, yes, this is what we could be having all the time. I'll watch your Robert Pattinson Batmans if you give me an intermission.
I wouldn't have had to pee during a pivotal battle or whatever I missed in Tenet, you know? I probably would have liked it more. Yeah. Oh, you could take a quick nap during the intermission?
I mean, very
there you
quick,
go.
but
Yeah. Well, I was thinking a half hour. I guess 10 minutes is standard.
15 minutes is the kind of common, but yeah, I mean, like half an hour, sure. Why not? You know.
Hell, give me an hour. I can go home, get some stuff done.
This originally had an intermission, The Wizard of Oz, but it also had a whole road show. So it was very common at the time that this came out, because remember, you're talking before you can watch any media any place other than a theater, right? So movies stayed in theaters, if they were successful, sometimes for years, but they would also be touring road shows to promote it, where a bunch of the actors, or sometimes just like dancers for that scene or whatever, would go around to towns and do a live part either before or in the intermission, or, you know, at both places for a movie. So this originally had a road show and an intermission.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
love that. Make every movie like Rocky Horror Picture Show. You know, send out the scripts to your local theater nerds.
I mean, I don't think
I
every
have
movie
so many
should
ideas.
be like, I love Rocky Horror Picture Show, but I don't want to watch every movie like that.
I'm just giving away free ideas to the movie industry. You know, they're not all winners.
But hey, neither was 3D movies. So,
Yeah.
you know.
There are a handful of movies I would do in the fashion of Rocky Horror, and like half of them have Tim Curry in them. So like, I would do
legit.
that with Clue. I would do it with Muppet Treasure Island. Yeah.
Good one. What about
I would do it
Legend?
with Annie that had Legend. Would
It's a
be
little
hard.
slow and serious.
I was gonna say, like, Legend, incredible Tim Curry performance, but a little hard to Rocky Horror in that the tone is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not pantomime enough. Except
It's not
for
like
Tim Curry.
convivial goof atmosphere in the same way that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit of an aside, but one of the best birthday parties I ever went to was a script reading party for the movie Clue, where everyone just got a part to play, and we just read the script, and then like you had to take a drink every time like lightning flashed or like the dogs barked or whatever. It was way more fun than it should have been.
That
was
sounds
great.
incredible.
It was amazing. So do that for your next birthday. There's a little tip. It's not my idea. It was a friend of mine, but
That's
a little tip from your friend Ben. Invite everyone over. Read the Clue script.
That sounds incredible. I should maybe do that for my next birthday. I was at my queer writers group, so this is like peak audience for this kind of. But somebody said you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Peacock, every cook will tell you that. And this was like one conversation over to the side. Literally everybody in the room turned and screamed, "But look what happened to the cook!" And one of the guy who runs it was like, I guess this is a queer writing group. I should have expected that.
Oh, man. That is a great movie. I saw that 3 times in the theater because I heard they had different endings.
Yeah. Did you get all of the endings in your 3 times, or did you get repeats?
I think I missed out on one, which I probably saw when the VHS came out.
Yeah. All right. Tim Curry diversion over, but that is an incredible birthday party idea.
Yes, do it.
Oh, I love it. All right, let's get into it. I've got some notes. I've got the script handy. And we don't have to stick to this, but if this sparks any conversation, let me know. So at the start, it says it's dedicated to the young in heart. And I thought that was pretty touching. Basically, it's a family movie. You can be 90 and not ashamed to enjoy this. It reminded me of when Time Magazine's Person of the Year was you. Do you remember this?
Yes. It was a reflective mirror on the cover.
So dumb. I think it was like YouTube and the internet or whatever, but tacky. I love how loud these chicks are chirping early
Starting
on.
a beef with the editors of Time.
Oh, we've had a beef for some time.
Oh, really?
Trust me.
Yeah, this is an ongoing feud that I'm stepping in the middle of.
That's right.
Okay, so very loud birds.
Yeah,
They were very loud.
Birds.
Yeah.
So I asked, is Dorothy playing younger? We discussed that. One of those fools is like waving a huge hammer at her, and I was like, get that out of her face. She's a child. I don't know.
I do think that goes back a little bit to that sort of stage production sort of mentality. All of the movements in this film are very big. And yes, sometimes that involves waving a hammer at a 16-year-old girl. Innocently, in an innocent manner, of course. But I also understand the nervousness about that, because I had a little bit about that too. So I get it.
So, and this didn't come up when I was on your show with our Lady Gaga album, Joanne, which is a great album, by the way.
It's a great album.
But the phallic nature of that first swinging object, I think we should just, as we go, think about a young girl's adolescence and like evolution of her spirit in that way. Spoiler alert, some guy waves a sword around later. Pay attention.
This is never, I felt like an awakening into womanhood movie in the way that other, like Labyrinth, if you want to talk about like dealing with your emerging sexuality. And I don't know if that's just because you put David Bowie in it, or like if even without him it would have been.
I mean, the David Bowie of it all certainly doesn't hurt. So
we will definitely watch Labyrinth at some point. Yeah, it's all there.
I have been, I was considering doing a season 2 of Any Album You Like, specifically to Labyrinth, after discovering Labyrinth has the exact same runtime as The Wizard of Oz does. And it's about a girl who goes to a magical place and is travels with 3 companions to through this magical world. And I'm like,
to reach a city, to to get back home again. It is actually very,
right? So I'm like, season 2, maybe someday it'll happen.
I mean, if you ever do that, you have to have me on, because I am a Labyrinth obsessive, so.
Excellent. Well, I'll save a spot.
Hell yeah. I was taking notes, and apparently I had to write Labyrinth twice. It's that powerful. Or maybe it's just because we kept saying it a bunch. Oh, my God. What a great film. I love the stinky guy. Or not. He's not stinky. He's afraid of the stink.
Of the Bog of Stench.
Yeah, the Bog of the Eternal Stench.
Yeah, his name is Hoggle.
Good old Hoggle. So Dorothy goes up on the pig stall, and I was like, she's going to get eaten by those pigs. Careful. And then they all rush in and save her. And I think that's the Scarecrow rushes in and saves her, right?
I don't remember, actually.
His character's name is
it's
Hunk.
Hunk, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Aunt Em comes. Oh, I noticed that Zeke was the Cowardly Lion because he had the same sort of like vaudeville voice thing going on. Aunt Em comes up, and I wrote, she can't put up with lollygaggers. She just does not have time for it.
You're allowed to save my niece, but you're not allowed to then take a break afterwards.
She has this great line. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, just you saved my niece, now get back to work.
Good job. Now, get back to work.
She says, now you and Hunk get back to that wagon. All right, Mrs. Gale, but someday they're going to erect a statue to me in this town. Well, don't start posing for it now.
Wow, you really don't like anti-M, do you?
What does he think the statue of him is going to be for? Like, I'm not saying don't dream big, but like, what is he anticipating this road to statuedom being?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he just thinks that he's going to keep doing, statue-worthy things. Who knows which one they'll make a statue out of.
I like that. It gives him that American hopeful spirit. I can go from farmhand to, I don't know, statue. Mm-hmm. And some stuff there in between.
Classic American bootstraps. Exactly.
I can honestly tell you I've never considered why I would get a statue. That just never came up.
There's no reason for me to have a statue. I'll admit it here and now.
They don't make statues of podcasters.
They do not, nor should they, probably.
When I was, I don't think we need to start that. Enough podcasters already think perfectly highly of themselves without erecting monuments to them. But, what was I gonna say? Oh, I was watching, when I watched Andor, there is a scene that's like a funeral that's also a riot against, fascist government. And, I was like, after I was watching with a friend, I was like, man, I really want my funeral to be a riot against a fascist government, but I have to start leading a very different kind of life right now if, that's gonna be the case.
Sometimes I think about what my role would be in the underground resistance, but it's pretty much just get rolled up and sent to prison right away. Like, it's... I don't know how you'd miss me.
Yeah, I have always been very concerned that I would break under torture, which is ridiculous for two reasons. One, everybody does. And two, it's not super applicable in my day-to-day life unless things take a real downhill turn this election. Like...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not ruling out the possibility of, but it just seems like a weird thing to waste anxiety on.
Oh, so when I was on Historical Hotties with Lindsay back in the day, we did, one of you did the White Rose Society, the brother and sister.
Yep.
Yeah, there's probably a statue of them, yeah?
There is statues of them, yep.
Cool. They won because they were the hottest.
They were hot. They were college students, so that was kind of, but Hans had very fluffy hair.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. Oh, I did say that it's kind of cheating for them to die so young, but that was in poor taste, and you might have cut it for time.
That was a very long episode because there were 4 of us on it, so yeah. I did have to do some cutting for time, but I don't remember what I cut for time. But there was 4 of us, and we all had a lot to say, so...
Yeah. So she says something about she wants to go someplace where there isn't any trouble. And then she starts to sing. One
of the most iconic songs of the 20th century.
Just brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this was my into the movie, like, as a youngster, because we sang it all the time in music class.
I do think it's weird that she says, like, I want to go someplace where there isn't any trouble, because if there's one thing that Oz is not lacking in, it's trouble. She gets in trouble,
OMG.
Basically, like, everything she does there, so...
It doesn't help that her first action is to literally crush somebody with a house, so...
Yeah. That's
just
not, like, a very
out there.
calm, relaxed, zen way to make an introduction. Yeah,
starting off on the wrong foot. Or 2 feet, because the witch had 2 feet. I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere.
There's shoes. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I get it.
So she sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yes, and it's beautiful, and I love it. So then we get to Miss Gulch, who rides up. And so, like, on a meta level, we know this is the witch. So, like, she looks more or less the same. But it did make me think about a sort of consistent trope of witches being, like, awfully similar in sort of stereotypical depiction as Jewish women. And I wondered if Have you ever talked about this on your show?
So most of the tropes of witchiness are actually about women being brewers more than they are about any particular ethnic.
Brewers?
Yeah, so all of the symbols... So women used to do all the brew beering back in the day. It was associated with baking. You're dealing with grains for both of them. It was like household kitchen work. So women were the brewers way back in the day. And then the Catholic Church realized there was a significant amount of money to be made in alcohol, and that's when they started vilifying women who brewed as witches. So the tall hat, the pointy hat that we see on the Wicked Witch, was a thing that women who brew wore so that you would know out on the street who you could like approach to buy some beer. So the tall hat was a brewer thing that got associated with witchcraft by the Catholic Church.
It was purely marketing? It wasn't like it keeps the beer off?
No, It was purely see them in a crowd so you know who to approach for like a 6-pack.
Like
it's
how
like
you
wearing
know
a barber pole on your head.
Or like a chef hat. You see someone in a chef hat, you know they're a chef.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
The broom was because women who brewed would often put a broom right outside their door when there was a batch done, so people would know that they could like knock and ask to buy some. Big cauldrons were associated with witches because of brewing. Cats as familiars because women who had a lot of grain to protect from pests had a lot of cats. So most of the things we identify as symbols of witchcraft either came from the Malif Maleficorum, which is one of the books that has done the most damage in human history.
That's the one written by King James?
No, that's the one written by the German dude who was obsessed with a woman who wouldn't go out with him in the 1500s. King James just made it the most published book to date. But it was a German incel who, in the 1500s, who wrote the Malus Maleficorum, to basically be like, I don't care that you won't sleep with me, I don't like you anyways, and you're all in league with the devil. But led to the murder of many people, not just women, but lots and lots and lots of some of the most damage a book has ever done. So all the traits of witchcraft either come from that, or they come from the Catholic Church trying to take the money-making prospect of brewing away from women and giving it to monks.
Yep. Now, the two things that I think you were thinking of when it comes to sort of Jewish stereotypes is the sort of long nose that witches are often depicted with is considered sort of a stereotype of the sort of Jewish look, I guess. They're depicted like that in a lot of propaganda.
Yeah.
And then also the green skin, because similarly, green or blue skin was also used to depict Jewish people in propaganda. So there is a little bit of that does seep in. But yeah, all the hats and cats and brooms and cauldrons and all of that, that's just beer, baby.
I love this. This is fantastic. Okay. Well, I always love it when I can investigate why I feel a little hinky about something and find there's more to it. I appreciate that. It's not just Harry Potter goblins who are also bankers.
Oh, yeah, I can't even with that. We can't start on J.K. Rowling and just the insanity of the goblins. I mean, the insanity of so much in Harry Potter that she is either just wildly, wildly racist and sexist, or she has internalized so many tropes that she's never examined at all. Like, one or the other or somewhere in between, but it is just bonkers. I mean, they even betray Jesus in those books. Like, every piece of propaganda that's ever been used about Jewish people is in the goblins in Harry Potter. It's just insane. Anyways.
Yeah, let's add Harry Potter to the list.
Let's not add Harry Potter to the list. I've been a part of a Harry Potter boycott for like a decade now.
Course. No, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That would just be a big rant session of a podcast, so not.
Lindsay Rants for 4 Hours, the podcast.
I can't wait. Oh my God, that'd be
that
great.
is a podcast that I would have no trouble producing. I don't know that anybody would ever want to listen to it.
I have my hand raised. I don't know. Let's see. I was reading the book today, and I noticed that Uncle Henry had a long beard.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like super gray and dour, never laughs. I think the characterization's a little different here. He's more like just kind of beaten down and
well, I think you're getting much
impotent.
more Depression era imagery in Kansas than was happening when Frank L. Baum wrote the books.
Yeah.
I think when this is being filmed, you're getting a lot of Dust Bowl imagery.
Yeah, like Uncle Henry's seen some shit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they've
Yes.
all their neighbors are getting, their farms stolen by banks, and nobody's been able to grow crops because of, bad soil management and causing dust storms.
So Miss Gulch is menacing Dorothy, and Henry and Em are trying to, like, I don't know, be nice, but also not get the dog taken away. And they end up having to take it, otherwise there'll be legal action. And Auntie Em says to Elmira, "For 23 years I've been dying to tell you what I thought of you, and now, well, being a Christian woman, I can't say it." And then she runs off.
I do really like Uncle Henry's. He sits down and he's very clearly trying to not laugh, and then Miss Gulch looks at him and he's just like, "Oh, I'm not getting involved." So it was a great little, just tiny facial expression. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Henry was very good.
Probably some of the most subtle acting in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, everybody else is doing this big theatrical thing, and he's doing a very, grounded Stanislavski kind of performance.
So the next scene, Toto fucking does a runner, and Dorothy is just over the moon. "You came back!" She's so excited. But she's like, "Well, they'll come right back for you, so we gotta run away." And it got me thinking, does this mean that Toto is to blame for this entire mess?
Not entirely. You can't blame a tornado on a dog.
Yeah. He really didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Dorothy also chooses to run away. It's her choice. I mean, yes, the alternative is hand over
Letting
the dog
someone kill
to
your dog,
be,
but
quote unquote, destroyed. But she does choose to run away. So I don't think you can blame that on Toto either.
So you're saying that there is always a choice, even if that choice means your dog gets turned into a hamburger or whatever. I don't know what they did with dogs back then.
yeah,
For the record, I did not say that, but essentially,
But
yes.
sure. No, I don't think anything would have happened with Toto, as far as being turned into anything. I'm pretty sure they just would have killed him and then left it at that. I
Yeah.
don't think...
She did let him run in the garden, which I don't know how that happened. No leash, probably. What are we doing, Kansas? We need a
this
leash
is
law.
farms. Most people on farms do not leash their animals. Leashes, I don't even know how prominent they were in the 30s, but they definitely weren't in rural areas. So
they're running away, and they come across this older gentleman, and at first I was like, "Oh, this looks kind of dull." They got a little nice banter, but then the camera pulls out of his campsite, and you see all these trees, and they're all rustling in the wind, and I'm just like, "Are they outside? Is this still a studio?" It really, it was really nice. There was a moment though where he gets up to go into the trailer to give her a reading, and he just leaves his tray full of meat on his chair where Toto can easily get to it. I was like, what the hell is happening here?
He's already stolen one hot dog, or sausage or whatever.
I mean, you might have
whatever it
assumed
was.
that Toto is a tiny dog. And
you're saying he knows his limits? He's like, one sausage is enough.
I'm not saying that Toto is on a weight loss journey. I am saying I might assume that dog physically could not eat that much more than the one sausage he'd already stolen.
That makes sense. If you see him follow Dorothy, though, you can. I like to think, oh, he just loves her so much he can't be apart from her. I love dogs. I haven't had a dog in a while, if you can't tell.
Deviation from the book, but I understand for budgetary reasons in a movie that I'm sure is that he is very explicitly part of a circus in the books. And here he's just like a snake oil salesman, or kind of like wandering fortune teller. And he is 100% fully in the circus in the books.
Gotcha. So the wind's picking up. You can see the branches moving like from inside his trailer. He says something about a whopper to speak in the language of the peasantry. Does that ring a bell?
It's something like that.
I mean, he's a snake oil salesman, and so like fancy patter was really associated with that. So it was using what would be considered like highbrow academic or sort of unnecessarily flowery language, but also being a colloquial man of the people.
Yeah, he's using some $5 words.
Yeah. So he sits her down and he's like, "This is the same genuine, magic, authentic crystal used by the priests of Osiris and Osiris in the days of pharaohs of Egypt." Puts on a turban, just does this whole thing. And anybody who's seen a reading like could tell that he's doing like some business to try to like, I can't remember exactly what he was doing, but he was looking through her stuff. Yeah,
he literally pulls out a picture of Dorothy and Auntie M so he can be like, "Oh yeah, there's an older woman who's just so sad that you left. She's crying." Or he doesn't connect the two. He's just like, "Oh yeah, she's crying. It looks like her heart's broken." And
it's someone she loves very much, someone she's been very kind to, someone she's taken care of in sickness. I had the measles once and she stayed right by me every minute. What's she doing now?
I do love that even though this guy is a straight up con man, he's just like, yeah, no, this 16-year-old girl just has to go home. Like, I'm going to con her into going back home because she can't be running away.
Yeah, it's pretty kind depiction of like itinerant circus folk con man to just be like, I mean, but I'm gonna look out for the kid. Like,
now I will say that if she's 16, this makes sense. Just kind of convince her to go home. If she was 10, I think the responsible thing would be to walk her home and make sure she gets home, but then you'd have to leave your whole trailer behind, and
right, that's your
depression. Like somebody will
your
rob
house
it.
And your business,
and your horse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your sausages. You can't just leave that stuff sitting out in the middle of the field.
Oh, here we go. It's his last part. He says, "There's a storm blowing, a whopper, to speak in the vernacular of the peasantry." And then the twister starts, and holy shit. There's models, like it looks so amazing.
Yeah, I was pardon the accidental pun, I guess, but I was actually really blown away by how intense this scene is. Like, and it's a real testament to kind of what you can do with practical effects, because they were doing this in 1939, and it looks better than some of the stuff they're making today, because they're just throwing it into a computer and don't give a shit about how good it actually looks.
One of the long-standing Nelson opinions, along with if your movie's going to be over 3 hours, give me an intermission, is make every effect you can a practical effect. Nothing, just movies from the 30s to the 40s to the 80s, if they're practical effect based, they look so much better. You can use CGI and special effects to like smooth edges or transitions or punch up stuff that wouldn't be possible, but do everything you can practical. It ages so much better. It gives your actors so much more to work off of. Just practical effects. Bring back practical effects.
Yep. My prime example of that, Jurassic Park, 1993. They have some CG, and the CG actually holds up pretty good.
Yeah.
And they only use it for like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of dinosaurs running off in the distance, so you can't see all the details.
But close up is
right, actual models,
and animatronics, and
Yep. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Alien still looks incredible because they built that ship, they built the monster, like it's completely watchable. You know, from effects. I mean, from every aspect, that's a great movie, but just like the effects do not hold it back at all because it looks incredible.
One of my favorite movies of all time. I watch it most every Halloween because I'm not a big horror person, but I make an exception for Alien, so it's still good.
Incredible. But Jurassic Park's another great one. Still looks great.
I think Alien might be the first R-rated movie I ever saw. Was Gandhi R-rated? I don't know. It was one
Do you
of
think
those.
Gandhi was R-rated? Because there's nudity in Gandhi, isn't there?
Yeah. So yeah, it was maybe 1A and 1B. But yeah, it scared the hell out of me. I was like 9 or 10.
But yeah, this tornado still looks great.
Oh yeah.
To go back to the practical effects. Again, the Lindsay Rants for 4 Hours podcast would be very easily accomplished.
There's the moment where she's trying to get into the cellar door, and this is where I really noticed the stage actiness, because this is a farm girl, right? She'd hunker over and yank on it the proper way, and she's like, oh, the arm goes back, oh, the knee goes back, it's hilarious.
Well, there's also a lot of, and like, this is a podcast, I'm going to do a physical gesture, but like this, there's lots of, she brings her fist to her mouth, but like turned where her fingers are facing the camera in like a little expression of distress, which she does a lot throughout the movie. And that could just be a personal tick, but it's that kind of stuff that's very theatrical.
Yeah. In the book, the cellar door is inside the house, right? Rather than like detached.
Most storm cellars are outside the house.
I would think so, but for some reason in the 1890s or whatever what year was this book?
He was writing it right at the turn of the century. I think it came out in the 20s. It was only like 15 years old when they did this movie, so.
Oh, cool. So yeah, I was telling you guys before, she goes up near the window and I'm like, Dorothy, it's a storm. You don't go near the window. Ah! And I've seen this plenty. I don't know why it scared me. We see the cyclone through the window, and I counted up all the things she sees. There's a cart, there's a tree, some chickens, there's a knitting lady, and I'm like, yep, she's dead. Cow, he's dead, she's dead. 2 guys rowing, they're dead. Miss Gulch, well, surely she's dead, right? And then I was like, oh shit, she's a witch! And the song is really scary too.
It's very good music at that point.
See,
I mean, I don't know, the rowboat guys have at least something to kind of maybe break their fall. Like they could.
Right.
I think knitting in a rocking chair lady is probably dead, but maybe the rowboat guys make it.
I'm just surprised she's able to knit through that,
Oh, they're going to find her the next day with knitting needles through her gut and pieces of chair in her heart. Yeah. Nightmare.
So the house crashes.
There's this moment where everything's totally silent and she makes this sound. I wish I had it queued up, but it's like, oh, it got me. Toto in full color is even cuter, right? I mean, he's black still, but there's just his little nose and his tongue. But yeah, this is where you were talking about the sepia stand-in turns into Dorothy. And I realized Munchkin Village could be part of a theme park, right? With rides and shit. Is there an Oz theme park?
There is one. It has been abandoned. And for years it was abandoned and people would just go wander around it decaying. And now they do an Oz Fest there or something. They have a festival that happens. But yes, there is there was at one point a theme park. It did not survive, but now it's kind of reborn again a little bit.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna look into that after this. Another book thing in that they're Dorothy's height. So that's another way we could probably tell that
The
they
age
aged
that
her
she
up.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she says this great line, Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Is there a more quoted line in American cinema? I feel like it's...
I mean, it's right up there with "You're gonna need a bigger boat." And,
Yeah.
Like.
Or Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
I'll
handful
be
of
back.
lines that are used by people who have possibly never seen the movie, but they've just become a part of pop culture language. And I don't think we're in Kansas anymore is definitely one of them.
Okay, Glinda. She rolls in on her pink bubble. Looks amazing. And right off the bat, she's like, "Oh, you killed this witch. That's awesome. Are you a bad witch?" And she's like, "What?" And then she says, "Only bad witches are ugly." And I was just like, "No, Glinda, you didn't. What?" So hostile. And then she says the witch has gone where the goblins go. Or was that a Munchkin that said that? Maybe that was in the song.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
remember.
think
that's in the song.
Glinda doesn't say that. Yeah.
But basically, Glinda's like doing that thing. Sometimes you call it NLP. It's like where you like make someone think it's their idea. And she's just nudging Dorothy into going to see the wizard, knowing that she's going to end up having to go face off against the Wicked Witch of the West and wipe out one of Glinda's political opponents. And I got to wonder, like, who's her puppet dictator? Does she have one, like, in line? Are they a Winky? Are they a flying monkey? You know, is it a carpetbagger from the north? I need answers to these questions. Or does she just want chaos? Does she not care if there's a power vacuum?
In Wicked, which she's not got into, but she is part of the Wizards support prop government, like, you know, flunkies. So yeah, she is kind of upholding the Wizards sort of bogus rule.
Interesting.
So.
The humbug party?
I'm not above the idea that she's just doing it for the chaos. She said she was a good witch. She never said she was a lawful good witch. So it could be chaotic good.
I noticed that with the Munchkins, the way they did their makeup, it almost seemed like they were adding wrinkles to kids, like to fill out the group or whatever. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I don't know, I do think that their styling makes them look kind of like creepy ventriloquist dummies.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's what I always thought as a kid. I was like, why did you make these, like, perfectly nice looking? I mean, there's just something about the way they did their hair. They, like, lacquered it and stuff that made them look like ventriloquist dummies.
Yeah, it does make them look a little, like, toy-like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So while the Munchkins are talking about how great it is that the witch is dead, Glinda is smiling like a fucking maniac. She's just like, "Oh yeah, she's dead. Oh yes, killed that witch."
I mean, you're definitely bringing a very modern sensibility to this sort of perspective because, like, historically in fairy tales, everybody parties when the Wicked Witch is killed. Like, it is not uncommon for everybody to be super jazzed that somebody was just annihilated. I mean, if it was like the wicked sorcerer or whatever in a fairy tale.
Love a post-murder party.
I mean, sometimes they make punishing the bad guy part of the party, like in the original, I think it's either the original Snow White or the original Sleeping Beauty, but I think it's the original Snow White. They make her dance at their "we're glad you're defeated / dead" party by putting shoes that they heat up they're like iron shoes that they heat up in a fire on her feet, so she has to dance because they're just put burning red hot shoes on her feet.
Gruesome.
Hansel and Gretel threw a rave after. So.
I mean, they cooked her, so...
You gotta have snacks,
this is,
you know.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. That like your sort of take on it is very postmodern, like meta-analysis, because people celebrating in the demise of a statedly wicked character is very common in like storytelling tropes of, you know.
So this is the moment in which a munchkin swings a sword, like, in the middle of this melee, and Dorothy, I swear to God, is like 6 inches away from this thing. And I was just like, oh, jump scare. She's fine. Don't worry. She didn't get cut.
Nope, that's the end of the film. She dies right there. Classic 1939
Classic.
movie.
Theme song.
Enjoy family cinema. Anyways, she gets told that to get home, she has to see the wizard, and she has to travel to the Emerald City. She's like, oh, how do I get there? And Glinda's like, just follow the yellow brick road. I guess we've skipped the Wicked Witch coming in, haven't we?
The
'Cause you're
Wicked
talking
Witch
about the
comes
munchkins a
in.
lot. Yeah.
She's like, where are the slippers? Again, I write Glinda's such a shit stirrer. She's just smiling as she fucks with the witch. And she's like, ooh.
You're just like, there they are, and there they'll stay.
The slippers seem to be on this girl's feet. And, you know, I almost was surprised that she didn't step like 10 feet away just in case the witch
No, I mean, she's like
her.
right behind, like, hands on her shoulders and stuff, isn't she, at this point? Like,
Yeah. And then when the witch leaves, Glinda's like, ooh, what a smell of sulfur.
yeah. So, we've met the main antagonist, who's mad at Dorothy because she killed her sister and stole her shoes. And we've been given our quest, our mission statement. We have to journey to the Emerald City to meet the wizard to get sent home. And then we get sent off with another chorus of the song and, like, skipping down the yellow brick road. Again, another iconic shot where it spirals out. I, as a kid, always wanted to take the orange-colored road. I was like, where does that one go?
Exactly.
Well, if they had made a Wizard of Oz 2, we would have found out.
I mean, they did make a Return to Oz, but they don't take the orange road in it. So, anyways.
It's in the public the book is in the public domain.
It's true.
So you can write your own story about where that goes.
Where it goes.
Yeah.
Cool. Following the yellow brick road, we have a little song and dance. And then I noticed that Toto, it seems like, I swear to God, every time they cut is when the dog, like, got out of pocket and, like, ran off screen or did something wild. I think they just ran the film and yeah, because he's always, like, right there where he's supposed to be. And I'm like, how do you... I figure, like, Judy Garland has treats in her pocket or something.
I mean, shit, but, like, most dogs that... I mean, animals that are trained to be actors are very well behaved. Like, you don't make it through the training. You don't get to be the on-set dog if you aren't, like, incredibly well trained. I have worked on sets with, like, trained animals, and they are incredibly disciplined.
That's good. I noticed there's a ton of eating in the books, but not in the film.
Mm-hmm. Because eating in film is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You have to reset every time. You have to have, like, as many, especially when, like Ren was talking about, you needed the really high lighting to work with the kind of camera that was in Technicolor. Even food that you do not think of as, like, melts under those kind of stage lights. And everything wilts and looks old right away. You need so many copies of whatever you're eating to bring out a fresh one for every take. And it is murder on actors. Because you have to, like, take so many bites and eat so much, or, like, take bites and spit stuff out again. Like, I always feel great empathy for scenes where people are eating in movies, because that day usually sucks.
I can imagine. I noticed there was weird, scary music as we see the Scarecrow, and I'm like, what's that about? Are scarecrows
Because the Scarecrow is
scary?
traditionally scary. Yeah, and, like, you're in a fantasy world, and you don't know what to expect for anything. They're trying to freak you out about everything before we're assured that it's friendly. Like, it is not just the Scarecrow. They try and make you feel like, oh, what's this? And there is a significant chance that it is scary in this, you know, like...
Right.
Eat an apple, get attacked by apple trees. Like,
Those sons of bitches.
The Scarecrow happens to be a very nice person, but, like, we don't know that yet. Also, Scarecrow's scary. Their whole function is to be scary.
This one's not, because he can't scare any crows. They fly over from the next county just to get food from his field. Yeah. And I do love the shot where he's complaining about it and a crow just flies down.
Lands on it.
Lands right on him and takes a little bit of straw and flies off. I know that joke because I've seen this so many times, but I legit laughed. It's still a very funny joke.
It's still very funny. It's still a great, like, classic. Yeah.
I noticed that she's really good at gassing him up, and this will become a pattern of, like, him like, oh, I'm not smart. And she's like, you've got so many wonderful qualities. Let's go, you know.
It's important to gas up your friends.
There's lots of mutual gassing each other up in this movie from everybody. Like, they do it to Dorothy. Dorothy does it. It's a very supportive environment.
Yeah, that leads to my Marxist critique of the film, which is that farmers, workers, 10-year-old girls, dogs, working together, we can make a better society.
I mean, the era that this was being shot in, I mean, the studio system was very anti, like unionizing and stuff at this point. But we're talking about the era where class solidarity was a big deal. I mean, some of the riots that established things we think of as a given, like the 8-hour workday and the 5-day work week and stuff, were happening in this time period. Also, particularly in rural areas, there was lots of solidarity against the banks who were foreclosing on everybody and stuff, because they would often then put them up for a bank option, like the properties that they'd foreclosed on, and all of the neighbors would show up with shotguns and threaten anybody who bid more than $1 so that people could buy their farms back from the bank, and the bank wouldn't make any money out of it.
That kicks ass.
Yeah, there was a lot of very kick-ass class solidarity in the Great Depression, because times like that will bring it out of people, for sure.
I noticed that the yellow brick road splits 4 ways, and I just want to say it looks good on film, but that's confusing.
Right.
This is also a
go.
book reference. There are 4 quadrants to Oz in the books.
Indeed.
So, there's the land of the Munchkins, there's the land of the Gelflings, there's the land of the
Winkies.
The Winkies and the Quinlins? Something like that? I can't remember.
Quislings? No, that's not right.
One of the ones that are all the guards for the witch, because she's
those are the
occupied
Winkies.
them. Oh, those are the Winkies, right.
Yeah.
So it's can't remember. It starts with a Q. Can't remember what it is, but there are four quadrants of Oz, each like ruled by a different group of people.
Yeah. So they're in the forest. We're throwing wax apples, and the witch shows up, and I'm just like, why doesn't she kill Dorothy right? I mean, she's right there.
We've been explained that the shoes protect her.
I keep forgetting.
The shoes make her, like, unkillable by standard means from the witch. Which is why she keeps trying to set up traps, because the witch cannot act against her while she's wearing the shoes.
Couldn't she give a flying monkey a gun and just say, like, go to town?
I mean, if Oz had guns.
It does, though. It does.
That's true. The Winkies have guns, don't they?
Well,
they have
the
pipes.
Winkies have, like, muskets.
There's a scene when we're going to the witch's castle, like the forest outside of the witch's castle, and all of they got to go get Dorothy. Or no, Dorothy's still with them. They're going to the castle to get the broom. That's what it is. And they all bring weapons, and because like the Tin Man has a big pipe wrench, and the lion has like
one of those
basically a big insecticide sprays,
yeah.
but it's labeled like witch repellent or something. And the Scarecrow has a fucking revolver.
Yes. That's right. Very American, very industrial. I forgot about all their weapons being super like weird American Clue. But yeah, no, I guess the guns do apparently exist in Oz, but I don't know what level to like. Because it seems to be like she can make misfortune befall her, but she can't act directly against her. So I don't know if ordering somebody to shoot her is too close to taking direct action.
That's too close, yeah.
Like, you can wake up a bunch of angry apple trees and hope that they beat her to death, but you can't wake them up with the explicit instructions that they need to beat her to death.
Yeah.
That actually makes sense. I can see the logic to that.
When we're talking about it's magic, so it's all like intent and stuff like that anyways. So has to do it without like being the direct cause of it.
There's this great moment where they see the Tin Man and Dorothy goes, "Why, it's a man!"
Yes.
It's cute. That's all I got.
Sure.
I wondered if the paint gave him cancer. Because, it was the 30s, before OSHA.
Well, like I said, the first person who was going to play him had a severe allergic reaction and scarring from the metallic paint.
Something really weird happens in the middle of his song. A lady voice just happens and says, like, I can't remember what she sings. Oh, wherefore art thou Romeo?
Romeo.
And I'm like, what are we doing? This never comes back.
It's a magic kingdom.
Yeah, there's just magic ethereal singers following you around
Right,
in
like
case you need them.
You don't know the rules. Like, there's Terry Pratchett talks about metaphorically resonant landscape, where like when you're in the Transylvania equivalent in the Discworld, if you say something ominous, there will be a strike of lightning because the land is like metaphorically resonant.
Ooh,
you don't know what the rules are in Oz, like.
One theory I had was that he threw his voice. Basically, I need to know the extent of the Tin Man's powers. Mm-hmm. What else is he capable of? In the book, his axe is like super sharp and can cut through trees and stuff.
Yes. He's like a wind-up man in the books in a way that he is not in this. He's just he's like clockwork in the books. And in this, he's just a man in a tin man.
Yeah.
he's not a clockwork woodcutter, which he is in the.
In the book, the witch trades him parts, and then he has to go like get metal, and eventually he's all metal. The witch arrives on the roof. She's throwing fireballs at Scarecrow, and then we get to the lion. They do a little song. And then Dorothy just straight slaps the lion in the face.
He's being hysterical. That's what you did in the 30s when someone was hysterical.
He's also trying to eat her dog, so,
Yeah. And that actually happens in the book as well.
Yeah.
In the book, Lion asks what Toto is made of, and Dorothy says, he's a meat dog. In his song, he says, without the Vimen Voiv. And I like that vaudevillian vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I come from, on my mom's side, a family of Midwestern farmers who still say stuff like vim and verb or like piss and vinegar.
Yeah.
Which they say all the time.
So in the book, the lion is a literal lion, whereas in the show, it's like a guy standing up. I wondered.
Because how else are you supposed to do that?
Well, now we could do it, but like, who's
now
ever going to remake The Wizard of Oz?
It would not
bad.
be a practical effect. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would look like the terrible Disney quote-unquote live-action remakes of like The Lion King and the Jungle Book.
Couldn't you use an animatronic at some point? Or like, what is it called? Like an Andy Serkis situation?
I mean, sure, you could use like mocap or
that's what it is.
Animatronics would be hard because
it'd be hard to do the like skipping thing that they do.
Yeah.
He's required to do so much that it would require like lots of different versions of the lion that can do different. Yeah, I think animatronics would probably not work, but you could do mocap.
Now here's my thought: get a Muppet.
Muppet would be
Muppet
great.
Lion would be great.
I'm also not opposed to the furry situation that we have going on in this. That somebody being
I love a furry, and I for some reason I had this weird memory of playing the Cowardly Lion, but I think I just wanted to because that costume looks so
You just
so
thought about
comfortable.
it so hard that you
Yeah.
talked part of your brain into believing it.
So they get to the poppy field. In this, the witch created it or something. It's huge. The poppies put them to sleep. And Scarecrow and the Tin Man don't breathe, so they're fine. Yeah, any feelings about that scene?
I mean, again, there was originally the witch sending more because, like, the apple trees, but she also sent a jitterbug, which was supposed to make them dance to death. You can see clips of the whole cutout scene. So she's just throwing whatever she can at them. So a field full of, like, soporific poppies, you know.
Yeah, in film form, it just feels kind of like it happens because there's like, oh, there's poppies. Now there's snow, and Dorothy's awake. Let's go.
The snow makes no sense. Unless that snow has methamphetamine in it.
It's magic snow that Glinda is sending to wake them up.
I don't buy it. She's a meth dealer behind the scenes. We didn't know.
You're really not feeling the vibe of the magical logic of this.
But no, it feels a little, the pacing.
Like, why doesn't she just give a monkey a gun? And I'm like,
the pacing of it just feels a little bit weird. Like, I get what it's going for, and I'm sure, like, you know, in a book where you can kind of explain what's going on a little bit more, it probably tracks a little bit more. But it's one of the weird moments of the movie where I'm just like, she goes to sleep, and then Glinda makes it snow. All right, we're just moving on now.
And then it's fine. Yeah, it feels like kind of a non-event in the movie.
Right. I don't hate it, but it feels a little out of place.
It's stranger in the book because there's no witch POV, so like you have no idea if this stuff is just happening because it's Oz or if she's behind it.
Right.
I have a note here. Look at these green motherfuckers. I don't know. That's just Oz, the Emerald City. We got velvet top hats. We got a horse that changes colors just for a dumb pun.
A horse of a different color.
Mm-hmm.
We have the wash up and brush up ladies, which I love.
Yes.
I love just the fact that they just like buff you and then you have like a makeover.
Imagine showing up in a city and they're just like, you've been traveling for a while. It's spa day now. Let's do this.
Before you can meet our ruler, the wizard, you have to we have to do a makeover montage.
So then we get the King of the Forest song, and I think, Ben, you're with me on this, that this is a bad song.
It's a momentum killer, I think. Where like I don't think it's a great song. Like, it's not bad, but it's one of the lowlights compared to, you know, Follow the Yellow Brick Road, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, you know, all these classics. No one remembers If I Were King of the Forest.
I do like that they get into some vandalism to make the bit keep going, which is fun.
Did love how they're like, oh, he needs a crown, so I'm just going to take this pot, smash it, and now it's a crown. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of a momentum killer, and like...
Yeah, it doesn't advance the story in any way.
Right.
These are wants and needs we already know that he has.
Mm-hmm.
There's no motivated reason for him to be singing it now, except that they all might get granted wishes by the wizard. So I do think it does take the kind of wind out of the story's sails.
So there's a door guy.
I love his like fuzzy hat and his giant fuzzy gloves. Love it.
Yeah, he says he had an Aunt M once, which I find a little strange. There's just no context for it. It's just, yeah.
Also, when you recognize that these guys are all the wizard, that you just imagine him running around, like, behind the scenes to get to the next spot before them, like... Especially
like it's all
you
one
know
runner.
He doesn't have any actual magic, and he's just got, like, secret hallways to, like, run around and change clothes really quick, put on his big fuzzy gloves, and then be like, oh, yeah.
Talk about theatrical. That's like a Shakespeare kind of thing. Switching outfits and suddenly you're someone else. To the point, like, it actually worked in this movie. Like, as a kid, I had no idea those were all the same guy.
Yeah, it's a pretty convincing look change for sure.
We got a big spooky green cathedral hall. Toto's acting the fool. And
I mean, he's not, though. He's the only one who's wise to the wizard.
I guess I'm just thinking he's being a bad dog, in terms of
Toto would
with his
never.
mouth.
Toto is a perfect boy.
Toto is trying to warn them that the wizard is a con. He's like, I can smell that dude, and he's been in 4 different outfits. It's the same guy.
That's a really great point. If they had just trusted Toto, they could have cut through some of the rigmarole. The Wiz basically just orders them to their deaths, right?
I mean, he orders them to get a thing that he's too scared to get because he's willing to risk their lives. That's not the same thing as ordering them to their deaths. He's hoping they succeed, but he's perfectly willing to continue to throw bodies at this problem until one of them solves it, Again, very classic fairy tale. There's lots of kings and stuff who are just willing to continue to throw travelers at a problem until one of them happens to be the right traveler.
But the important thing is they got a spa day before they die. So, you know.
Yeah,
Yes.
they gave him they got a massage from the wash-up, brush-up girls before, so,
Although the lion probably messed up his perm when he leapt through a window with no apparent injuries.
I mean, if it was actually a perm and not just curling his hair, then leaping through a window would have been fine. Perms chemically alter your hair for an extended period of time. The only way he would have ruined it is if he jumped through into water immediately after, and then as we learned in Legally Blonde, it would have deactivated the...
Yeah. This is when we see the wrench, the net gas, and the gun. And then we see these owls. Now, we're loving on practical effects, but these owls and these vultures look like shit.
Yeah, okay, so these guys didn't hold up quite as well, but for the most part, the practical effects of this movie really do it. I think it's the style design of these in general. I don't think this is a thing that in the 30s people were like, oh, those vultures look dope. I mean, maybe they were, but...
I think it really works for the owls, too, though, because it's a very unnatural looking thing, so you're kind of in that uncanny valley of, creepiness.
I think it's supposed to not look like real...
Interesting. So it's a way to make the witch's kingdom more unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Because I'm sure they spent so much on this movie, they could have gotten a couple of owls if they really wanted to.
For sure, we've had horses and dogs and
pigs and chickens and you literally painted a horse 5 different colors. So we can buy a couple of owls for the shoot.
Yeah, I think this is to make them look weird.
So
and scary.
Next, we have just far too many monkeys. It made me think that I bet those monkeys really stink. I mean, there's so many of them. You know what I mean? Do they have helpers that clean out their stables? Do they
get a spa day?
Yeah. I bet they don't.
I mean, are you talking about, for shooting or, in the fiction? Because I think in the fiction they could probably clean up their own, because they're, hench monkeys.
Oh, they're henches. They do their own cleaning. Okay. That makes sense.
I mean, they have that kind of capacity, if we're talking about in fiction. I don't think you need caretakers for the monkeys that you're sending to, go abduct people and stuff.
They throw, 20 or 30 spears at Toto, and he is fine.
Yeah, I mean, nobody said that they were good at it, but I'm just saying, I don't think that they can, if you can understand the command, go throw spears at that dog, even if you don't have good aim, you're capable of, taking care of your own living area.
Hell yeah. This is where I go, holy shit, she's so evil, she cackles at us.
Yep. Yeah. Sure does.
Toto goes to get
the celluloid.
Let's see, Toto goes to get the guys. I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
He goes to get them in the woods to rescue, because they've been all pulled apart and stuff by the monkeys.
Does Dorothy tell him to go get them?
No, he just escapes.
Yeah, because
she tells him to, escaped.
The witch is going to kill Toto, which she can apparently do because Toto doesn't have ruby slippers.
Yeah.
But she's just like,
so
nope.
She can't kill Dorothy, but she can kill the dog.
Right. So she's like, I'm going to kill the dog. And then Toto does a sequel to his original Prison Break where he jumps out of this basket and then just runs. And Dorothy's just like, run, get out of here. And she's so happy. She's like, he made it. Toto escaped. The witch isn't going to get him. And then Toto, being the perfect good boy that he is, goes to get the guys to go rescue Dorothy. Because Toto, being the perfect boy, won't let the Wicked Witch harm Dorothy. So
such a good boy.
He's such a good boy.
They have to climb up a mountain to get to the witch's fortress. And at one point, they're like hanging off the lion's tail. And I don't know about the physics on that, but it's got to hurt, right?
I mean, I would imagine. I don't have, if this is like, you know, a furry situation, then maybe not, but then it would probably not stay attached, so.
Yeah, it wouldn't be really attached by anything but fabric, unless you're like, ooh, are there costume people that like make their costumes even more powerful than they might be in fiction? Like, you know, you have like a big cable tail. I don't know. So you could reenact that scene. I noticed the witch is into brutalist architecture.
Mm-hmm.
She's got these guys styled as Mongols, but they also have these like pike axe things, like naganatas, sort of. And they all managed to get their asses kicked.
They always look Russian to me more than like Mongolian.
Oh, yeah, maybe you're right.
Which again fits with the brutalism and the Cold War, so.
And then
we are fully into this as pre-World War II, I guess. We're not.
Right. Russia still has that sort of mystique, I think, in American culture at that time.
Yeah.
So they get back to the wizard, and I got a couple quotes here. The first one, a heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how you are loved by others. Oh, I skipped the part where the witch gets melted. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
skipping the whole, one of the most classic scenes in American cinema.
On the outside of the mountain, you had a whole thing about the lion's tail, and then the whole climax of a melting.
All right, give me the climax.
So they break back in. The witch is trying to get Dorothy to take poison so that she can get the shoes and, you know, get her to harm herself. And they come back in and try and rescue her. She threatens to kill them all. She tries to set the scarecrow on fire. And Dorothy throws a pail of water at her to put out the broom so she doesn't set the scarecrow on fire. And the water hits the witch. And lo and behold, it was her Achilles heel. Which, again, why you have buckets of water sitting around.
We need to talk about this.
This is one of the things that I really do like in the book Wicked, not the play version. They do it in the play, but it's a whole beat in the book. Is that she is faking her death by Dorothy killing her. So she is leaving the bucket of water there because she's already planted that it is her weakness. And so that she is faking her death with a bucket of water, which explains why she has a bucket of water in her inner sanctum if it's literally the one thing that can kill her, which doesn't make sense in this, but yes. I mean, unless she didn't know somehow, she doesn't know she's sensitive to water.
In that idea, she like ordered a Winky to bring a bucket of water and put it up on a shelf. Like, so she wants to quit, but she's like doesn't want to go through all the boring admin of like transferring the castle.
She's being hunted by the Wizards administration.
Oh,
she needs them to think she's dead so she can go off. She is not actively trying to the wizard is hunting her, won't leave her alone. She can't just go off and live her life. She wants to just go off and live her life, so she fakes her death so that they will think she's dead and stop sending random girls from the Midwest to kill her.
A problem that we all have.
I like that. I think in this, it's more likely that one of her henchmen
had water there for
put the water up there and was
cleaning
like,
task or whatever.
Yeah, and was like, "Psst, if you get a chance, knock that bucket on the witch."
Well, there's no indication that the Winkies, I mean, they are happy as soon as Dorothy liberates them, but we don't see any, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, bucket of water, you know, so.
It's all headcanon, unfortunately.
I mean, they definitely, some reason for why there is a bucket of her one weakness in her, like, tower sanctum, that would at least be giving some justification for.
Okay, we return to the wizard. They brought him the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. We melted her, and the Wizard of Oz goes, "Ah, you liquidated her, eh? Very resourceful."
It's a good little joke. I liked it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're almost done here.
So then we get to the point that you jump to of him giving them their wishes, which is really just him giving them props to remind them of their...
Now, Casey, my former co-host on Everything is Awesome, she was livid at these terrible gifts the wizard gives, you know. Like, a diploma, that's worthless. Like, anybody can get a diploma. You know, a medal? Who needs a medal? And I was like, I think it's a metaphor.
It is A, a metaphor, and B, those things hold a lot of water when people know that the, like, ruler of the land gave them to you.
Oh, yes. It's not like Trump University or whatever.
Yeah, but it is like bestowing a knighthood on somebody.
And, you know, I'm just going to throw this out here. He gets that degree without a single dollar in student debt, so that's pretty legit.
It's a pretty good deal. And he can immediately, like, talk about isosceles triangles. So.
He'd just been sitting on that, but he didn't want to use it in case he got it wrong. But as soon as he got that diploma...
I mean, the whole point of them is they had everything they needed all along, right? Like, that's the point of everything. These are just physical reminders.
Right.
So that if they ever forget that or doubt that they have the brains, the courage, the heart, all they need to do is look at this and remember that they have all the brains, courage, and heart they would ever need.
Right.
This is also the fact that Dorothy had what she needed all along. And that from the minute she got there, again, this goes to your Glinda being a manipulative, like, Manchurian candidate kind of character. Like, could have told her from the jump that she could have gotten home with the shoes. That she had what she needed the whole time, just like all the rest of them. But theirs was like about believing in themselves, and hers was actually magical transporting shoes, so it's not quite the same.
Right. Because, like, the whole time when they do that plan to break into the castle and get Dorothy out, the Scarecrow is the one who comes up with every part of that plan. He says, I've got a plan, and they do that. And he's like, I got a new plan, and they do that. And in the heat of the moment, when they're surrounded by all these guards, he's the one who sees the chandelier and the rope, and he gets the idea to cut. It's like, that's all him. And in the panic of those moments, he's able to do it because he's not thinking about it. He has the ideas. And that diploma is just, hey, when you have self-doubt and you think you're not smart, remember, you're actually pretty smart, dude. So, like, don't forget.
That's cool. I like to think that the wizard actually is like a pretty cool guy, and he understands that like a farmer or a scarecrow can also be smart, you know? So he's celebrating that. Like the worker can also have emotions and, like, you know, not just be a machine in the cog of, you know, society. I don't know what the lion represents. Drunks
I mean,
at the
having
bar.
the literal courage of your convictions.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the lion is. But it's, again, this is a very American story, right? Because there's a lot of, like, rugged individualism and, like, bootstraps and all of this.
Right.
So, like, you don't need a fancy education. You have all the smarts you need. You just need to believe it. You know, it's very American.
I like this moment where the wizard, he's talking about the balloon failed to return. And Dorothy says, "Weren't you frightened?" And he says, "Frightened? You are talking to a man who has laughed in the face of death, sneered at doom, and chuckled at catastrophe. I was petrified." It just got me. It struck me funny.
The way they portrayed the wizard, both like when he's, we're in the real world in Kansas and here, as like a pretty chill, nice guy, is definitely not the same vibes we get. I mean, they're really glossing over "I manipulated an entire society into making me their ruler through lies," sort of.
This is a prime directive violation par excellence. For sure. And in the book, there's more. I mean, they still kind of, happy ending, leave it friendly, whatever. But there's a little bit more of like I've been conning an entire population in the books. Here, everybody's just chill with it. You know how sometimes in cinema they plant little like themes or whatever that kind of touch on an aspect of film as a medium? I feel like the wizard could also be seen as the director. He's got those big curtains. And he's full of shit, and like he's got everybody running to his tune. I don't know. Directors,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll take it, sure.
So yes, this is after they get all of their physical reminders of their attributes, then she's like, but what about, she's gonna get the balloon
and
with
then
him
it
as
up
he
and
goes
goes
back
away.
after his whole, and then it releases early, and we've got Toto again.
Whose fault was it for him releasing early?
So Toto sees a Siamese cat being held by one of the citizens of the Emerald City and runs off, and Dorothy jumps out to try to get Toto, and in the sort of kerfuffle of all of those events, the other characters, so like the lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, are all like holding on to the balloon.
And they just kind of let go.
They're like, whoa, and then that causes them to let go, and then now the balloon is flying off.
So she tells her about the shoes. Think to yourself, there's no place like home. And I don't remember if this part of it is in the book, but I have always been flummoxed by this. Ben, you've done that show 10 times. Did you come to any like understanding of what this message is about, who it's for?
Well, Dorothy does go on this whole little mini speech where she's like, now I know that if I'm ever thinking that there's something better out there for me, I can remember that all the people who love me are back at home, and I shouldn't, basically everything I sang about in Somewhere Over the Rainbow is garbage, and I should just be happy living at home.
I shouldn't have dreams or ambitions.
Right.
I should just accept my circumstances.
Which is, I get what they're trying to say. Like, you have family, and family's important, and they care for you, and blah, blah, blah. And you're 16, and maybe you shouldn't be running off to go join the circus or whatever. But the way she words it was interesting to me, because she's literally like, if I ever think that there's something better out there for me, I just need to remember that there isn't. And it's like, wow, okay, cool. So you're gonna live on this farm till you die. That's great.
Is not the vibe in the books. Like, in the books, she fully intends the shoes to be able to take her. She basically plans to do much more of a Narnia thing, where she has the ability to go anywhere she wants and has other adventures, and she can go home and like chill for a while and make sure that everybody doesn't think she's dead and like recoup and then like come back. But you physically fly over space with the shoes in the books, and the shoes fall off when she's over a vast desert. So she still gets the rest of the way home, but the shoes are lost. And then they talk about them later. They like resurface later in other of the Oz books.
Wow. I just got that one from the library, the first one, so I might end up reading all of them at some point. I haven't done that since elementary school. Yeah, she says, "This is my room and you're all here, and I'm not going to leave here ever again because I love you all."
See, she's literally like, this is where I'm going to die, which is probably true because when there's a tornado, she stands right in front of the window. So, it's probably not a very long life ahead of her. So,
especially living in tornado country. So,
upsetting post-credits sequence. Miss Gulch arrives after the tornado and takes Toto anyway. Unless she got killed in the storm.
Yeah, maybe. We don't see her again, so maybe she did. Unknown.
It's like after a horror movie, like all the stuff that's going to fall on the heroes, like, that survived, but we don't have to see it.
I mean, I do think, like, all the paperwork and stuff that's gonna happen after, like, whatever.
Gotta go to the police station, fill out forms, thumbprints.
There was one we were watching for the Kurt Russell Filmography podcast, a movie I'd never seen called Breakdown, which is about a guy and his wife doing a cross-country road trip because they're moving, and his wife vanishes, like, gets it. Anyways, I don't want to get into a whole thing, but basically it was unique to me in the sense of one of those movies where he contacts the cops. Like, the cops don't believe him and he's taking matters into his own hands, but he's contacted the cops, like, at every kind of step that he can along the way in a way that I felt was very unique in a lot of action movies, to the fact where at the end, I think he's going to have relatively little trouble at the end of the climax after he's, like, taking care of bad guys and stuff, because he has kept the police informed despite them not being very helpful, that when they show up, I think he will have relatively little convincing to do, like, way less than is normal in that kind of a movie, because
that's great.
He did keep reaching out to law enforcement, so.
Well, we can just hope that Miss Gulch is dead and that problem is solved. I'm sure the whole town will be happier.
If this was a modern movie, you'd have like 5 to 10 minutes of credits, and then the post-credit sequence would be a slow pan over a twisted up bike, and then you'd see one bloody hand climb up out of a ditch, and then cut to black. Boom, there you go.
Perfect.
I mean, you could put this whole thing on Dorothy saw the Gulch house and, like, the Gulch sister crushed by a house, and this whole thing was, like, her trying to psychologically cope with seeing, like, a dead, mangled body. So.
Okay, I'm listening.
I mean, that doesn't mean that the Mrs. Gulch who wants to kill Toto is necessarily dead, but it could have been her, her sister was crushed under the house. And
so in the way that this could be like a Jacob's Ladder scenario or like a dream, when we do our Wizard of Oz remake, it's post-traumatic stress disorder, like suppressed memories. This is great. Let me write this down. Nobody steal this. Overall thoughts. How'd you feel this time, Wizard of Oz?
I mean, this movie is always watchable. Like, I just think that you put it on, you watch it, you enjoy it, you know what happens, it's still not boring. Earlier, Ben was talking about in the practical effects conversation, like Jurassic Park. It is one of those movies, like, I don't think I'll ever get bored of Jurassic Park. I know everything that happens in that movie, and yet I could still sit down and watch it and totally have fun every time. This is one of those movies that is well crafted enough and pretty enough and performed well enough that even when you've seen it tens of times, it's still fun.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect since the last 11 times I watched it. It was to different soundtracks. But I sat down and like, because, when I was doing that podcast, it was a lot of kind of focusing on, is anything in the soundtrack kind of lining up with stuff? Because that's the whole idea of, like, the dark side of Oz. And so I wasn't paying the closest attention to the movie, but at least not in a, like, sitting down to watch a movie sort of way. And so I didn't really know what to expect. But I sat down and I just immediately I was like, oh man, like the way that this is shot and the way that they do this like Technicolor glow up and the music and just everything about it. I'm like, yeah, this is still great. I mean, maybe two momentum killing moments aside, where if I was cutting this for maybe a more modern audience, I'd clean up a bit. But beyond that, I don't have anything bad to say about this movie. At least watching it, was a nightmare to make with the way everyone was treated. But watching the film, I have basically no complaints about it. It's still fun. As a 39-year-old dude in the year 2024, it's an 85-year-old movie, and it holds up way better than movies made 5-10 years ago. It's great. I loved it.
That's awesome. Something you said sparked an idea, which was Poppies are slowing it down and King of the Forest slowing it down. Smash them together. The lion's high. He's doing a song about how great he's going to be.
There we go.
I mean, I still think it'd slow it down.
It'd still probably slow it down.
Because you're still not progressing the plot at all. You're just removing it from like we're in this waiting room, let me talk about my hopes and dreams, to I'm tripping. Let me talk about my hopes and dreams.
You can say that about any tripping scene in a movie. It's like,
I think a lot of tripping scenes slow it down unless the character has some kind of needed revelation, or something like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, it's intricately part of the story, and also it does kind of move the story forward because they're like trying to drive the car while they're being attacked by like demon bats or whatever. It's been a long time since I've seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Now, tripping scene question, Willy Wonka, when they're in that tunnel and everything goes all weird.
Not canonically tripping.
It's too scary.
It's canonically crazy like Candyman threatening you. Yeah, no, absolutely feels like a trip. And they just ate a bunch of stuff in the previous room, so who knows?
They could be tripping.
I think it's too scary and intense to be a momentum killer. Because it's still provoking a reaction.
Yeah, because what's happening at this point is you are getting the suspense of the factory and its inherent risks and dangers. So this scene is just highlighting the unsafe territory you're in. So I don't think it takes momentum out of the scene.
Okay,
yeah.
It's highlighting potential OSHA violations. That makes sense. Yeah, got it.
It's highlighting the whole fact that you just saw a kid get sucked up a pipe, and that none of this factory is OSHA compliant. That everything in this factory that makes candy can also kill you.
Okay, no, I'll accept that. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I just. I got, when I was doing Any Album You Like, I just got so tired of If I Were King of the Forest. Every time I'm like, we got to go through this again. Oh, man.
Did it ever match up well with anything that you recall?
No. Well, I think there was one, and I don't remember which one it was. It might have been, I think it was one of the last two. So I think it was either Beck or Lady Gaga. I don't remember. But there was one where I was like, okay, this kind of matches up with the music. But other than that, every time I was like, not only is this kind of boring, but it's like nothing's working with any of this. It's just so boring. And so yeah, I got a little sick of it. But yeah, I would just nix that. I think if you just nix If I Were King of the Forest, you've got pretty much a perfect movie.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned for the Mooney cut.
What about you, Jeff?
Well, gosh, I mean, I love it so much. I was supposed to choose a movie for some friends to watch, and I was like, Wizard of Oz or Princess Bride. They went with Princess Bride, but for me, it's like either one. So quotable, so many fabulous images. Just takes me back to childhood, and it's basic story elements have been seeded throughout all our fiction, at least as Americans. Like it taps into so much, and I love talking about it. I love Dorothy, and apparently I want to be the Cowardly Lion, so now I know what my Halloween costume is for next year. There's no time to do it now.
Yeah, no.
I mean, who can make a lion costume? And
I mean, you can definitely
2 weeks.
buy one, but making one, yeah.
That's a coward's way out, so.
All right. Well, where do we go from here? Recommendations?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I had one. Does anybody have anything on deck? Something they've enjoyed in the last week or two?
Yeah. So I, like a lot of people who like Spooky Month, which I am a certified spooky person, so this is basically the high holy times, and I have to. But frequently, people will do like a spooky movie bingo or some kind of to watch new scary movies that you haven't necessarily seen. And to fill out a spot on my list this month, I watched a Dutch thriller called The Vanishing from the 80s.
That one's so scary.
Blown away how I had never seen this one before, because it is incredible. Talk about streamlined filmmaking. There's basically 3 people in this movie. I mean, there are other background actors, but there's 3 main characters. It is there's no gore, no visible shown violence, and yet it is one of the scariest freaking things I have ever seen. And there is a point in the end, and I won't spoil it for anybody who watches, but it was just a brilliant screenwriting move, both from the characters in it. This tactical move was brilliant. I've also never seen it done quite like this in a movie before. The basic story, without getting into any twists or anything, is a guy is going on vacation with his girlfriend. They stop at a rest stop. She vanishes. He spends the next 3 years trying to find her, and does end up actually meeting up with the psychopath who took her. I will not tell you anything else because you should just watch it, but damn. I could not believe I had not seen this before because it was scary as hell. This was like when I watched Night of the Hunter as an adult, and I'd seen it as a kid, and I was like, okay, I get, but was not that scared by it. As an adult, that movie is freaky as hell.
Maybe it helps to have similar experiences as an adult, or you've watched a lot of true crime documentaries or something.
Well, the psycho killer in this thriller is terrifying, and partially terrifying because of his normalcy. That is a big part of what makes him scary in The Vanishing. So check that out. If you're in the mood for some Dutch thriller, it is excellent.
They did make an American version, but I never saw it. I just saw the
I can't imagine it's as good.
Surely
America's not usually good at... right now in theaters, there is an American version of Speak No Evil, which is a Danish movie that scared the pants off me. And already just from the trailers, the American one is much more bombastic. And the realism of the Danish one is what was so scary about it. So, I love James McAvoy, so I'll probably still see it at some point just because I think he's a great actor, but American remakes of horror movies are usually never as good as the original. The Ring is actually a rare case that I think, obviously the original Japanese one I still think is better, but where I think the American one is pretty comparable. They captured the vibe.
It's so good. And you can't go wrong with Naomi Watts, the lady.
No, she's great in it, yeah.
Just remarkable. Also great in Twin Peaks: The Return.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's on our list, but we should definitely add that. Ben, do you have anything?
I don't know. I haven't really been watching a whole lot lately. My wife and I have been very busy with trying to prepare our house to sell because, long story short, 3 different cars have hit my house in the last 2 years. So
it is wild.
Yeah.
I have been following, your house car crashing saga, and it is wild.
So I don't have a lot of mental capacity to watch a lot of new things these days. I would say we already talked about Alien, which I watch basically every October. One of my favorite films of all time. All the practical effects, great story, great characters, great everything. And I guess in the world of video games, I'm now playing my second playthrough of Alan Wake 2, which is weird and trippy, and so if that's your kind of thing, I would recommend that. It's bizarre as hell, and I love it. It's my kind of jam. So
yeah, I have wanted to play it because I really liked Alan Wake.
I was gonna say that was like on PlayStation 1, I think.
It was originally Xbox 360. 2010. And then last year they made Alan Wake 2, and it is so good. It has literally my favorite moment in all of video game anything.
Wow.
It's phenomenal, and I'm not going to talk about it because part of the reason it was so good was because I didn't expect it. So you may, if you are following anything about Alan Wake, you may or may not already know. I'll just say it's the musical part, and it's great. I wasn't gonna do a second play like the New Game Plus or whatever, but I was thinking about it. I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna do the New Game Plus. So it's really good. That's kind of the only new media in my life at the moment, because everything else is house stuff. Because again, 3 different cars have hit my house. It's great. I'm living the best life.
Are you having to fix stuff that you just let slide for the last whatever long?
Oh, the first one crashed into the side of our living room. So the wall had like partially caved in. We have a whole new wall where that previous wall was. They had to redo our entire floor because the little bit, it was all one big piece of floor. So they had to completely redo our entire flooring downstairs, repainted, rebuilt the fence, repainted the house. And then literally 3 days after they rebuilt the fence, another car hit the house. And so I'm literally standing at midnight. I'm talking to this cop, and he's like, has this ever happened before? And I point back at this unpainted section of fence and the giant sheet of plastic covering the side of my house. And I'm like, yes, it has. So
wow.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
it's
you
cool.
guys found out that this has been like a long-standing problem with the property, right?
Oh, yeah, we found out after we moved in, because if you go to Google Maps and look at the street view, you can see at least 2 other crashes from before we moved in. So it's
amazing. With me, I came across Muir Lafferty's earlier books because I love Six Wakes. It's like a murder mystery on a spaceship. But she's got 2 books in this series, Station Eternity, and I can't remember the second one, but it's also very good. But it's like there's weird aliens just getting to know humans for the first time, and like she's like one of 2 humans on the station, and she's sort of on the run. But she's like Jessica Fletcher, but if the cops were super suspicious of how come she's always solving murders. So it's kind of a fun twist on that.
It is surprising to me that Jessica Fletcher did not catch more heat for the fact that there were so many bodies dropping around her. I mean, especially considering that her town is really small. I mean, she does leave it a lot for other reasons, and she has so many nieces and nephews who always need her to look into something, and then somebody gets killed. Her siblings were busy, is all I gotta say. But yeah, it's like nobody's getting suspicious of this little old lady who's always there when a dead body shows up.
And yeah, so she explores that. Actually, I don't know Muir's Muir. I don't know enough about them. They might have a different gender, but they explore that idea. And there's like AI the station is alive. Like, there's all kinds of great things about it, so I highly recommend that. And I also am doing a Hannibal rewatch.
God, I love Hannibal.
It's so fucking stylish and beautiful, but
So
so
good.
fucked up at the same time.
Oh, yeah. That is one of those, I love Hannibal, but I cannot, I mean, like, it gives me so many feelings. Incredible, both, like, one of the most stylistically gorgeous TV shows to have happened in the last, like, 20, 30 years, but also just Mads Mikkelsen and, like, the two, their
Hugh
chemistry.
Dancy. Yeah.
Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen, their chemistry and their performances are just incredible.
Also, Lawrence Fishburne is in that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
And Gina Torres. I mean, the whole cast is incredible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the rapport between Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen is just
incredible.
as Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter is just insane. It's like crazy. It's just so good.
Cool. I think we've already picked. We're going to do Severance next, and we also have a plan to do the Bartimaeus, to start the Bartimaeus trilogy with James Lark, our composer. I can't wait to meet him on the air.
Yeah.
And next time I'll read. He sent us a statement of like kind of what inspired him to write the theme and his ideas and stuff. It's really great. So I think I'll do that next time. We are at 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll sign off. Ben, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun and a great excuse to watch The Wizard of Oz with original soundtrack.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. How do people find you?
Your niche is a very weird, specific Wizard of Oz scholar.
How do people find you on the internet?
So I am mostly not on social media these days, which is a big surprise to me. I thought I would never leave Twitter, but here we are. I am on Bluesky, though. You can find me at ben.vampirefriday.org is my username. I'm also on Mastadon if anyone actually uses that, because I don't feel like anyone does. But I'm at Benmo, that's BENMO, at sunny.garden. And then, of course, my different podcasts. If you want to find out any more of those, I will rattle off a bunch of URLs real quick here. Back to the Futurama.net, goodmorninggreendale.com, ringmybell.sexandlasers.com. And I don't have one for any album you like. Just look that one up on iTunes or whatever.
Hell yeah.
I do miss Vampire Fridays.
Oh, yeah.
Are you still doing Vampire Friday?
I every now and then I do Vampire Friday. It's a holiday that a friend of mine and I sort of accidentally invented. That's the last Friday of every month. You just do something to celebrate vampires. You know, wear a cape, watch What We Do in the Shadows, read Dracula. You know, whatever. Just last Friday of every month. But yeah, that's all the places you can find me these days.
Hell yeah. Lindsay, what about you?
Like Ben, I'm not really on a lot of social media anymore, but you can find me on Instagram at Lindsay Cameron Nelson. It's where I'm most active and I post all my gelatos. Also, I'm still technically on Twitter, but I don't check it that often. So, Lindsay Nelson on Twitter.
Cool. And you can reach us. Oh, I guess I should say me. I'm at El Jefe Tacoma on Twitter, Facebook, Bluesky, Mastodon, Hinge, probably. I don't know what I'm called over there. Our email is greatandsekretknowledge@gmail.com. Please check in. Tell us if we need to add anything to the list. We have so much, and it's just been a great, fun ride, and it's been so nice to hear you again, Ben, and to see you for the first time, and I hope to have you on again if you're interested.
Just let me know. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
All
right. Do you want to close us out, Lindsay, with our classic ending line?
That we don't have, but I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too.
Yes! Perfect. I've got water.
Okay.
Okay. Dry off my lips. Lips is a funny word. Oh, shit, you were drinking while I said the word lips. Sorry about that.
Did you know that your lip skin is closer to your teeth cells than anything else?
LIPSKIN.
Well, the cells are different, and for a lot, people talk about it being bones, but they're actually closer in a developmental stage to your fingernails and your lips than they are to your bones.
Oh, maybe that's why I chew my nails sometimes. It's like putting them together.
Because you're trying to reunite them?
Yeah, reunite
Getting the
them.
band back together.